IEBC Chairperson Wafula Chebukati had called for a crisis meeting to address the impasse in the commission following the suspension of CEO Ezra Chiloba. We know that the CEO had moved to the Labour Court to seek orders to overturn that suspension, but the Labour Court declined these orders, and he remains on suspension on the same note. So in terms of a divided IEBC, the information we receive is that on one end you have Wafula Chebukati, Professor Abdi Guliye, and Boya Molu, and on the other end, we have the Vice Chairperson, Consolata Maina, Commissioner Paul Kurgat, while Commissioner Margaret Mwachanya is said to be away in Dubai on official duties. Currently, a press conference is going on as we speak at a city hotel. Present at that press conference is, and I'll be giving you those details shortly. All right, let's talk a little bit about the IEBC fallout. On the 1st of September 2017, the Supreme Court annulled the August 8th election. Immediately after that, IEBC Chairperson Wafula Chebukati welcomed the court's ruling and promised internal changes to staff. 4 days later, the chairperson, in a leaked memo, asked the CEO for an explanation regarding a raft of issues: the type of election paper used, the purchase of internet or satellite phones, the transmission of results. And of course, this came to light because of that first leaked memo. On the 10th of September 2017, 5 days later, IEBC retreated to Naivasha to cool tempers and to plan polls. But just 8 days later, a second leaked memo comes to light, showing the chairperson asking Chiloba to sack 3 ICT staff, including the director, James Muhati, amongst others. So it still shows that there's a lot of challenges within the IEBC. 1 month later, on the 10th of October 2017, NASA leader Raila Odinga pulls out of the repeat poll. And we interrupt that timeline of events to announce that 3 IEBC commissioners have just resigned in a press conference at a city hotel that is going on as we speak. IEBC Vice Chairperson Consolata Maina, Commissioner Paul Kurgat, and Commissioner Margaret Mwachanya have just resigned. They have just quit. And of course, what we were trying to do was to give you the background to where IEBC finds itself at the moment. And of course, the latest event, which happened on the 6th of April, when CEO Ezra Chiloba was sent on compulsory leave. He moved to the Labour Court, but his orders or his prayers were not granted. And so that is where we find ourselves at the moment in terms of updates. 3 IEBC commissioners have resigned. The Vice Chairperson, Consolata Maina, Commissioner Paul Kurgat, and Commissioner Margaret Mwachanya have just announced in a press conference at a city hotel that they will no longer be carrying out their duties within the commission of the IEBC, and they have resigned. And of course, we'll be playing that footage for you shortly, just to give you more details in regards to this. All right, joining me in studio to talk about this breaking story, we have Gabriel Muduma, a political analyst. Welcome to the program. Thank you, Ahiga. And right here next to me is David Osiani, a public policy expert. Welcome to the program as well. Thank you, Ahiga. We were expecting Advocate Danstan Omari, who will not be able to join us, but Kakai Kissinger will be joining us shortly to talk about this unfolding story. On a day when the nation is mourning the late Kenneth Matiba, a bombshell like this one just comes out of nowhere. So I guess it's only appropriate to give you each a minute to send your condolences to the Matiba family, and then from thereafter you can give me your reaction to the resignation of these 3 commissioners. Muduma, I'll start with you.
Thank you, Ahiga, for inviting us here. And like you just said, I think it is a sad day for Kenya as a whole. When we talk about the departure of one Kennedy Jindo Matiba, or as he was known, the great son of Keharo. This is a man who we all cherish the fact that he walked on the face of this country, and he gave us the democracy. He was among the pioneers and among the people who gave us the democracy that we enjoy today. So as he moves to the afterlife, I think what we need to pray and ask is that we will have young leaders who rise up to lead to the true spirit of what Matiba really wanted. And I think that will be the great service that we can give to this hero. As we move along, let us also remember his family and those people that served with him in the second liberation. And I think it will be in play.
Okay, fair enough. Let me give David Osiani also his 30 seconds or 1 minute to just send his condolence message.
The greatest gift that the people of Kiangima in Cahokia, Kiharu, present Kiharu constituencies, gifted this country was Kenneth Stanley Njindo Matiba, a man who committed the entirety of his health and wealth towards this country. At a time when billionaires stashed money, he used the monies he had made legitimately from business to bankroll the second liberation in this country. Suffice to say that Kenneth Matiba has died without even a head of state commendation, sadly. He was only given an award for, the Golden Jubilee Award. And as all these people have come out to mourn about his death, it's been unfortunate that we do not honor our heroes while they are yet alive. We do not give them what they deserve when they deserve it. That said, Kenneth impacted positively on the lives of Kenyans. He lived for a truly free country. He lived for our freedoms. We celebrate them today because he did his part. On May 26th of 91, after he had a stroke and had no treatment for a week, and he deteriorated. 26 years, he has borne the brunt of a dictatorship that wouldn't give him space to flourish. So I want to pass my condolences to his family.
Okay.
And we wish them, God's blessings as they repose in the Lord in these trying times.
Fair enough. Muduma, let me come back to you. 3 IBC commissioners resign. I want to get your reaction to this developing story.
Wahiga, I am not surprised at all, given what we've witnessed in the past few weeks, and also the back and forth rattling that has been going on within IEBC. You see, I was among the first people who said Chairman Chebukati had a big job to do. He had a huge task to do. And
was it an impossible task?
It wasn't an no. It wasn't an impossible task. When he came in, he knew that which needed to be done. And he was the one who assured Kenyans. Remember, we are talking about somebody who assured Kenyans that he would deliver. I can understand the number of times he was hauled in and out of court. Probably that was not seen. But also he did not, and I've never missed this, he did not play his role properly. Many people will tell you within the commission and also the secretariat that he was a person who was not decisive. And when you are sitting in such an authority or such an office that is yet to run the elections of this country, fully well knowing what elections are in this nation, you need somebody who is very firm in their decision and who is very, very decisive, and somebody who takes control and takes charge of a commission. I think this is somebody who has tried to fire the CEO 7 times. All right, so it goes on to bring an element of somebody who was not sure whether the problem was within the commission or whether the problem was within the secretariat. I think what comes out clearly with Chebukati, and these are questions that we need to ask, because it is going to be quite a disservice to Kenyans if we are just going to say, you know what, scrap the whole of IEBC, let's start anew. I don't think that's what we need to do as a country. What we need to do is find out where the problem is and what solutions, what kind of mitigating factors can be put in play, and rejuvenate, the entire commission. But I think Chebukati on that has failed miserably.
Okay, allow us to have this discussion from a point of knowledge, because I have the statement of resignation. Let me just briefly read that. And of course, the 3 individuals on your screen are the ones who have resigned from the IEBC commission at the moment. Briefly, their statement reads as follows. It's a joint statement of resignation. When we were sworn in as commissioners of the IEBC, we took an oath to serve the country and the commission in line with the Constitution and the laws of the land. It must be known, and I've skipped a paragraph, that the commission operates as a single unit. There should never be an us versus them, commissioners versus secretariat, or chair versus CEO. A failure by any part of the unit of the commission, in our considered view, is a failure of the entire commission. The challenges of the 2017 elections call for the commission to self-reflect and to institutionalize the best practices. However, the institution has continued to be, and it's important that I read this because, Gabriel, you're asking, where is the problem?
Yes.
And the statement reads as follows. The institution has continued to be dysfunctional with arbitrary decision-making, leaking of internal documents to serve personal goals, and pursuing of personal interests, all of which are against the laid down laws that are given, the conduct of the commission leadership and staff, the race to chase ghosts does not help. This
Exactly.
needs to stop. The commissioners must all serve solely for the purpose that were appointed. We must banish external players from the commission boardrooms and reclaim the commission's independence. It's a three-page statement, so I'm just trying to get through this in as few minutes as I can. For far too long and too many times, the commission chair has failed to be the steady and stable hand that steers the ship in difficult times and gives direction when needed. Instead, under his leadership, the commission boardroom has become a venue for the peddling of misinformation, grounds for brewing mistrust, and a space for scrambling and for chasing individual glory and credit. I think I'm halfway through. Let me get some reactions, then I'll read the other half as well. David Osiani.
The question we have always tried to ask, and we must ask, is, was IEBC independent from the beginning? Isn't there a belief that there are hands trying to control, one pulling to one side and the other pulling to the other side, and the commissioners and the commission finding itself right in the middle? Which then is the hand for good and which is the hand for bad? That's what we must try to decipher. Is there at all, if any? That's for the fourth estate to find out. The thing is, I have seen in recent days, as everyone wants to lay blame squarely on the other. So you have Chebukati laying it on Chiloba, then you have a few commissioners laying it on Chebukati. Then collectively, if the commission had failed, I must state here that the leader of the commission is the chairman of the commission.
The buck stops with him.
The buck stops with the chairman. Of course, he would say, this is the accounting officer. Mr. Chiloba is the accounting officer. But the buck stops with him. But then I ask the question, these three commissioners now are saying all this. Where have they been as the chairman's hand has refused to be steady and stable as they opine, as they write?
You've quoted the statement.
So if they have thought all this while that he wasn't a steady and stable chairman, what were they doing in it all this while handling one of the most sensitive matters in any democracy? Juxtaposed against the death of Kenneth Njino Matiba, you know, Kenneth Matiba burnt his own ID when the 92 elections didn't seem to be anything. And he said, I'm doing this so that we may have elections that are trusted.
97 elections.
Ahead of the 97 elections, just after 92 elections.
Yes.
And he did that in the full glare of cameras. Now, if to date we do not have the confidence, because what this then boils down to is you are unable to persuade the nation that even going into the elections, as they had put a face of unity, going into the elections, that there was confidence. If they believed the chairman wasn't stable and steady, they defended the chairman. When the court, you know, during the court process, they defended the commission. How come now suddenly this comes up? It calls everyone else to the moral obligation to do what's right at any particular time. If you're appointed to an independent commission, please be independent. Do not work or even resign at the behest of a political hand or puppeteer in the background. That's my take about this. Because it seems to me that we have a commission, the infightings boil down to personal interests. I've just been reading this morning. So you have Boya Mulu, one of the commissioners, who used apparently or purportedly used the IEBC vehicles to transport personal things to his home in Marsabit.
You're referring to an article in the Daily Nation.
Yes, an article in the Daily Nation. You have an article saying, and it is fact, that the chairman's legal firm handled 6 cases on behalf of IEBC. Conflict of interest. You have questions put by Parliamentary Accounts Committee to the CEO. You have all this manner of things going on. But then we ask ourselves, have we tried to follow through? Are we just suffering amnesia? Where did we follow Isaac Hassan and Oswago? Up to what point? Or did we let ourselves be surpassed? Then we get ourselves in the same circle. What happened of the Chicken Gate? Why haven't we tried to pursue
we saw its
to its logical
in the UK,
conclusion?
But not in Kenya.
We saw Smith and Osman in the UK. They were they were convicted. They are serving jail term. In Kenya, we jail around it. Then tomorrow we want to say we have a new set of commissioners. They will do the same things, knowing very well there are no punitive measures for anything done out of the law.
Gabriel, come in. You've had a bit of that statement.
And you know, you would have actually thought I saw that statement.
Did you?
No. By the way,
No, that's on a lighter note.
We were just talking. Somebody had actually tweeted earlier on that there was a big announcement coming. I wasn't thinking it had anything to do with IEBC. But just reading from that statement, it clearly shows you that what I've just told you about Chairman Chebukati. This is somebody who led us to 2 elections, which I believe honestly could have been avoided. And I started, wondering if
he had done a better job, the election would not have been annulled.
Exactly, because I started asking myself, is it this easy to actually bungle an election? That you have a returning officer who knows their work, who knows what they need to do, yet he can choose not to sign a form while the rules and regulations according to our constitution are so clearly demarcated. All right, so I started questioning myself, and at one point I even asked, was Chebukati in control of this commission? Was he in control of this commission? Because the minute you start throwing punches, like, you know, I'll just allude to the letter, the leaked memo to Ezra Chiloba, and it contained a set of questions. But what Wahiga we do not know is how Ezra Chiloba answered them back. That was never leaked to us. And that would have brought out so many things that the chairman had asked the CEO. So to me, I kept asking myself, were those questions answered to totality? We may never know. But even leaking that memo, which again was attributed to the commissioners, all right, gave credence to the fact that there was a serious imbalance between the commission and the secretariat. And that's why I asked, what or where was the problem? All right, you are looking at a chairman again, and I repeat, who has tried, you know, getting this CEO out 7 times, many times, but some commissioners would not allow. So that also shows you what Connie is saying has an element of serious truth in it, because you're saying commissioners could not allow. When I look at Chebukati, this is somebody who actually is supposed to have the weight of a Supreme Court judge. Yet, when you go and commit an illegality in sending the CEO home, you don't have a quorum, as we saw.
And talk to a former ECK commissioner, Jack Tumwa, who's live with us on phone from Bungoma, actually from Nairobi. Commissioner, so I could almost say House of Cards that has been the IEBC.
Thank you for inviting me to discuss this matter of the commission. I'm not totally surprised that it has come the way it is. In fact, it was being expected. It was inevitable because I think the commission had put itself in a position where they were actually heading for either being asked to move out politically or resigning like they have done. Mm-hmm. It is a sorry state of affairs because even looking at the future, I don't see a possibility of this commission carrying another election when they have demonstrated to the entire world that they are not reading from the same page. The unfortunate thing about the commission is, in my view, when the law allowed that the secretariat has to operate differently from the commissioners, we created 2 powers or 2 centers of power at the commission. Mm-hmm. And this makes it very difficult for the chairman to keep total control or to keep control of the secretariat. The secretariat operates independently somehow from the commission. There is an element of independence, but they are supposed to work very, very closely. Unfortunately, they have demonstrated that this has not been the case. It is very unfortunate because that is one. 2, I think from the outside, my view is that there has been a lot of influence from the outside the commission. The commission loyalty has not been to the constitution.
Okay. The
commission loyalty has not been to the law. And that makes it very difficult. And it has a history, by the way. If I can look back at our days, we worked reasonably well as a commission from 1997 to 2005. 2005, after the government lost the referendum, they targeted a commission for removal. And every time a commission's time for retirement came, they replaced the commissioners with government-friendly commissioners. So that the loyalty moved from the commission to the people who appointed them.
Okay.
We started with if I can just finish, we started with very, very good old men who actually had the loyalty to the law and to the country.
So
is that
what you're seeing now? Because you say you've seen this in history. Are you saying that's where we are going to as a nation?
I'm saying it is as history, and the political class has not found it necessary. In fact, the political class has been benefiting from this division, which is very, very unfortunate as a nation.
Okay.
And it really doesn't matter which commission has come in, so long as the political class is going to have party interest in the commission, we are going to go have the same repeat of events.
Mr. Tumwa, in your experience, from a legal perspective, what options do the remaining commissioners have? Because that's what Kenyans want to know. What next?
In my view, the entire commission needs to be replaced. Because I don't see them organizing an election that will be acceptable to all in the form they are. Because, like someone has said, a commission is an entity. It has to work as a team. It has just to look at the law, it has to look at the Constitution, and it has to look at the independence that is guaranteed by the Constitution. But as long as we let them, and as I said, they have already indicated that they have got interest outside the Commission, it is still difficult.
Finally, in terms of where the buck finally stops, how heavy should this announcement be on the chairperson, Wafula Chebukati? What do you expect to hear from him when he speaks? Because we expect him to speak and respond to the fact that his commission is now less 3 members.
What I expect Chebukati to do is to do an honorable thing. It's very unfortunate, but I think Chebukati should also tell us that since he's now, since he doesn't have a team, since he doesn't have the soldiers to go to war, he should also throw in the towel and say, give the people, give the Constitution.
So you feel he should resign?
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. That's Jack Tumwa, former ECK Commissioner, giving us his views. He's live from Bungoma and just sharing with us his thoughts even as we continue to receive this news. David Osiani, you've been doing a bit of scribbling there, right? Penning down your thoughts. Share them with us now.
You know, ex-Commissioner Jack Tumwa has pointed out to what is obvious. The moment you let the political class be directly involved in the processes of the commission, including even the hiring, you end up with a commission whose loyalty is to the appointing person. If you have such, then you will end up with the fist fights you have seen around. Akombe resigns, you'll say she belongs to this person in political class.
Oh, this camp.
The 3 have resigned, you will hear very shortly, if you have not heard already, that they belong to this other camp. The remaining Chebukati and co, you will soon hear they belong to yet another camp. Because we have allowed politics to get into an institution that ought to be independent. Remember, the multi-billion shillings involved in the campaigns and in the running of elections in the country are a matter of interest to some people. You have oligarchs in this country and you have capitalists in this country who will not care whether the country burns or doesn't burn so long as they have their share of the cake in that budget line. So they want to come in and they want to be the ones to supply A, to supply B, to supply C, and they know who is who, and they are linked to every high office in government. So you will have a team that cannot function. You are likely to have people who are straightforward in delivering their mandate. But the propaganda machine will even outbeat them and outrun them. Before they catch up with the propaganda, there will be the bad people. Before this happens, that whole cycle must be resolved. And even as we talk about referendum, I've seen it's now a new thing going on and everyone is speaking about a possible referendum. But you realize that we're talking about a referendum just for political expediency and politics' sake, to create public office for other people and think that that will resolve our issues of ethnicity and other things. Key to such a referendum should be, how would we put IEBC, how are we able to mitigate and stop any interference? Can we ensure that IEBC is tamper-proof from the political class? Those are the things we need to be talking about.
And rather than who would oversee this referendum should
exactly who would oversee this referendum if the IEBC is at this place? Do we still have men of integrity and honor? Do these people who are appointed to the commission, deep when they sleep at home every night, it gets to a matter of conscientiousness. Do they have a conscience? Is it what they're proud to hand down to their children and their children's children? So if the politics is still going to be a very, part and parcel of the running and formation of the IEBC, the end result is what you're seeing now. There will not even be weight. You cannot say from one side of the cheek that the chairman has not been a stable and steady hand at the commission, and on the other side of the cheek that we did the election very well. In a sense, what you're saying is that he has been a stable hand until after the election. Then suddenly now he's not been a steady hand when he's not needed. What is that?
In your view, contradictory statements?
Extremely. It's obvious for any student. It's contradictory. Therefore, we have to go down to what really is going on.
What really is going on? Gabriel, what really is going on?
You see, actually, the former Commissioner, Jack Tumo, has actually said this word, independence, and I think that's what we've been talking about here. You see, when a commission loses that tag of independency, and you have what we are being told like a tag of two separate entities, where you have the Secretariat and where you have the commissioners, I think you have a problem right then. Immediately, you will know. Because one, it's the overstepping of the boundary. Who does what does who? And I think when I say you have a chairman who's been trying to fire the CEO 7 times, and all the previous times before the last one, he has failed. You must take cue, and people must ask, within and without, they must ask, what is the chairman wanting, or what is he? Is there a serious overreach, or is there something that Kenyans are not understanding? There is an element of misinformation that we've gotten, and one commissioner has actually alluded to it, or the 3 who have just resigned. When you talk about statements that are being passed to have come out of the commission, yet some of these commissioners were not privy to this information, that is actually creating an imbalance within the commission. There are so many things we are not told. For instance, yes, you may need to fire a CEO. Yes, you may hold that particular authority to fire the CEO. But what drives you to fire that CEO? That needs to come out in black and white. Because really, the Secretariat, for all intents and purposes, they were reporting to the chairman. All right? The chairman must come up again with a set of instructions like he did before, those that were answered by Ezra Chiloba. He must present them to the stakeholders on a very good format so that each and every Kenyan who is a stakeholder of this process must understand. Here we are talking about running into a referendum, but there's something bigger which is supposed to happen, Waihiga, at the end of the year, the boundaries review. Who is to do that? All right, we are in a disarray, and this is a very important exercise that we are supposed to do. The other thing, when a commissioner says that we were supposed to vote, all of us, the quorum was supposed to vote in these matters where you're getting a CEO. She has just alluded to it as being a weighty matter. Why would you do it when certain commissioners, you know very well, are not present? And some are outside, actually, the country. What is the hurry? So there are so many things that we need to question the chairman. Forget the 2017 election, because we've questioned that. Every person was questioned, including the president himself. Right? Many people could not understand how trained returning officers and officers, who are within IEBC, some who took oath, would seriously bungle an election on very minute and little mistakes. Yet, there was nothing happening to them.
Although
that is why
some sections of the political class did not feel there was a bungled election.
No. Most of them felt until. That's what we talked about when the Chief Justice, annulled that election. people started asking the questions that actually are requiring the same answers. And by the way, Waihiga, we've still not have gotten those answers. And that is why you had one group,
yes,
let me call it, NASA, went and said, we have this raft of issues that we need sorted.
Okay.
Jubilee on the other side went and said, we need to review. We need to review these elections. Why were they coming up with all these ratifications? It's because they knew there was a problem, and these problems needed to be attended to. So when I say the chairman was indecisive, that is what he was. That is what he was. I never felt he had the grasp or the authoritarian grip to run such a commission.
And I'm sure right now you feel justified. Let's take a look at what the law says. We have the IEBC Act here, specifically looking at term of office. Let me just read this just to give our viewers understanding of what could happen next. The members of the commission shall be appointed for a single term of 6 years and shall not be eligible for reappointment. The members of the commission shall serve on a full basis. And of course, the commission shall be properly constituted, notwithstanding a vacancy in its membership. Now, should a vacancy occur, this is what is expected to happen. The office of the chairperson or a member of the commission shall become vacant if the holder, A, dies, B, resigns from office by notice in writing addressed to the president, or is removed from office under any of the circumstances specified in Article 251 and Chapter 6 of the Constitution. So in this case, they've resigned. The president shall publish a notice of a vacancy in the Gazette within 7 days of the occurrence of such a vacancy. And of course, this notice should then now be about 4 commissioners, because we also should remember Dr. Akombe resigned last year. Whenever a vacancy arises under subsection 1, the recruitment of a new chairperson or a member under this act shall commence immediately after the declaration. And of course, if the chairperson was the one to resign, the vice chairperson should take over, etc. Where the positions of the chairperson and vice chairperson are vacant, a member elected by members of the commission shall act as the chairperson and exercise the powers and responsibilities of the chairperson until such a time as the chairperson is appointed. Let me get a brief reaction from David Osiani before we take you back to where this all started.
If I heard that act right, upon a vacancy and resignation by a commissioner, the president, there shall be a publication of a notice of vacancy within 7 days. Then the recruitment shall commence. When did Akombe resign? How long has it been? Have you seen that notice anywhere?
No.
I have not. We do not really stick to the rule of law. We want to honor the rule of law when it's convenient. And when it is not convenient, we do not. Now, as a policy expert, one of the most important things in any institution is something called institutional memory. There has to be continuity. There have to be a people who teach new ones how things are done. But at IEBC, we have created this to become a habit that once the election is done, their job is over, and we are looking for the next ones who come into office, who will be new, handle the next election, starting from scratch. They do not even gain from the previous people and the previous expertise.
The previous group is usually hounded out of office.
They're hounded out of office, always politically. Then we have a fresh start. By the time they get a grasp of things, there are very little crevices for the capitalists and their groups of businessmen and, the corrupt cartels to find their way in. Because by the time you understand how the whole process, how the institution runs, so much has gone so wrong. Is it fair to Kenyans? No, it is not. So we will continue with this cycle of investigations, reappointments, firing them, creating loopholes for them to be, threatened by the political class, trying to stop them from doing their work independently. Then the cycle goes on and on. But we must also ask, how many of them are intent on delivering on their mandate with honesty? What characters are these that we get there? Have we gone back to try and examine each person from their practice? If Wafula Chebukati was the founder of Koto and Company Advocates, what is that company? How did it deal? Does it have issues with LSK? Do we ask questions about the people appointed to these positions? Or do we wait until it explodes, then we come back and then ask ourselves, how did this happen? But because politics seems to be interlinked rather directly with the goings on at IEBC, as a person who studies politics and conspiracy The questions you need to ask yourself is, when Chebukati fires Chiloba, who gains politically in that equation? And when these three commissioners resign, who gains? In whose favor is this? Who becomes the ultimate gainer in that whole equation, in this crisis and mess? Because crises are created sometimes by other hands, because it bolsters an opportunity for them.
So our discussion should move from the fact that they've resigned, to find out now who gains, who's the big winner. Because if everything we're hearing is that it's all political, then there are winners and losers.
If it's all interlinked like that, as Jack Tumwa says, if the political hand is what is driving the resignations and the firings and all this, then we must ask ourselves, who could it be? And what is it intended on? Is it 2022 already, you know, exhibiting itself in this manner? And who really gains in this crisis?
I want you to hold you on that question as we bring in a man who might have a bit more insight into what may have happened at IEBC, because he's been there before. Former IEBC Commissioner Thomas Letangule, thank you so much for talking to us today on Citizen Extra. I want to immediately get your reaction to this developing story.
Yes, thank you so much, Waigo. I'm equally perplexed. I'm actually shocked when I heard about it. It's a crisis which has been building up as we have all been witnessing. And now with the resignation of these three commissioners, the business of the IEBC comes to a stop. Why I'm saying this is because the quorum for doing commission business is 5 commissioners. Now with the resignation of these three, that leaves another, is it 2, 3? So they can't transact any business. And therefore, what that means is that the commission really has just come to an end.
You say that you are perplexed by this, but you seem to be the only one who's perplexed, because everyone I've spoken to today says they saw this coming from a far ways away, and they were only waiting for it to actually happen. I want to find out from you, a lot of blame has been heaped on the chairperson, Wafula Chebukati. Some have said, and in that statement, he's been accused of not being a steady hand in all of this. Are those who've made these statements being unfair to him? Should the commission take responsibility as a whole? Or should you say it is this one man and everything that's happening is as a result of his actions or lack of action?
Yeah, Waigo, you know, in every situation, leadership is very crucial. What we are seeing in IEBC, and I've also said, I've been on record on this, is to say there's been some leadership crisis, lack of leadership. And this mostly lies squarely on the chairman. The chairman has not been able to provide steady leadership in that commission and building consensus among the team. And therefore, it has now boiled to this kind of crises, resignations, and all that. So it's true that blame must be stayed where it should be. That I think there is a problem with the chairman's leadership, which has now resulted in the whole house falling apart.
Former Commissioner, while your commission, the Isaac Hassan-led team, was at pains to show unity when you appeared in front of the cameras, we know that behind the scenes you also had your own challenges.
Of course, yes.
How did you resolve them to at least present that united face until the last day? And what would you have done if you were in this commission this time around? What would you have advised both sides?
The same thing. Remember, of course, not everybody always agrees on the table. But in our commission, at least we were able to always, we never voted on any issue. We always tried to reach on consensus. And where we disagreed, we said, okay, let's sleep on this matter, this again tomorrow, when tempers are a bit cooler. And that's how to work in such a commission, which is also having issues and being under pressure from the public and from politicians. And therefore, in this commission, we have always noticed, this current commission, that they're always voting, they're always discussing matters, disagreeing, sometimes publicly, and this has not been very good for them. And so I think it still boils down to the same issue, that there must have been leadership problems here.
If there are leadership problems, should the chairperson also resign?
That he should resign. I mean, he has no choice. The advice to that chairman now is to just resign. He cannot lead that commission anymore. And sorry to say that so hardly, but I mean, the situation is now crystallizing. Okay. I think that the rest of those commissioners, I think, just have to resign.
One last question. If they all resign, how do we ensure that we are not creating a cycle that where every 5 years we have a new team, the new team comes in and then we kick them out after an election, because one gets the feeling that we've been here before.
Well, yeah, you see, Waigwa, the unfortunate bit is that in our team, remember, we didn't create the crisis. But for this commission, currently they created the crisis themselves. Yeah? So it's unfortunate that the cycle again is going round and a new team has to be picked. But at least we can console ourselves that there is time now to reconstitute the commission. And even if they are not resigning, I have already said they have no choice because they can't transact the business. They have no quorum.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing those words and giving us some insight with your experience having served the IEBC under the, of course, former chairperson there, Isaac Hassan. Thomas Letangule, thank you once again. Gabriel Muthuma, I think I interrupted you and you're about to give us your thoughts. New insights there from Letangule, but the message seems to be the same.
Yes.
Wafula Chebukati, wherever you are, if you're watching this broadcast, it seems the call is for him to also step aside. But let me get your thoughts now.
And primarily because there will be no quorum. He does not have a quorum.
He cannot operate.
He cannot operate. Remember what I told you. The chairman comes from the hierarchy of somebody who should be a Supreme Court judge. And what we all see as the opening factor is he must be just. Not only that, he must play the conformity card. Now, with what the former commissioner is telling us, there will always be issues. But what you do during that turbulent time is what actually defines you as a true leader. You cannot say people could not come up to a resolution, whether it was through consensus or whether it was through a vote. The major problem that I foresee with Chairman Chebukati, he made the CEO his, I don't want to call it a punch, he made it his agenda. And he has chased these gentlemen ever since, you know, they came into play. His problem was that the Secretariat had an issue. But if the Secretariat had an issue, he had other commissioners who he needed to talk with. And actually, if you are talking about a vote or consensus, he needed for them to see what he saw. And so when we have this leaked memo, because I believe the issues emanated from there, from that leaked memo. There is so much we read from that. Everything else the commissioners who have just resigned have told us, we already had an idea of. What we were not told is what Ezra Chiloba returned out of that memo. Did he answer all those questions satisfactorily? If not, that was the opportune time the chairman needed to have come out to Kenyans and said, here is what we are suffering from. And by the way, writing to the president was so easy. And that is why I felt if there are so many issues, that is where you need to write and copy parliament so that we can discuss this issue and find the way forward. But the indecisiveness that the chairman had is what leads us here. Okay. The fact that independency has been eroded, when you look at what Connie has just said, they needed to reflect on 2017 and ask, how do we move forward? Remember what Higab just mentioned. There is an exercise coming to play. Okay. The boundaries review. Who is going to do that? Handle that? So actually, we are between a rock and a hard place. Okay, fair enough. I have a tweet, okay, we can take a look at that tweet quickly before we bring in Jackie Maribe, Kipchumba Murkomen, Majority Leader, Senate, and Elgeyo Marakwet, Senator. Chebukati, Molu, and Ngulie must, in caps, resign from IEBC within the next 7 days, or we form a tribunal to investigate them. The war drums are beating. One can already begin to see what will happen over the next couple of days. Let's now bring in Jackie Maribe, who covered that press conference at a city hotel where Vice Chairperson Consolata Maina, Commissioner Paul Kurgat, and Commissioner Margaret Mwachanya shocked the country by announcing their resignation with immediate effect. Jackie Maribe, talk to us a little bit and help us understand what all this means now.
Indeed, Wahiga, it was over as soon as it had begun at exactly 10 o'clock. By 10:05, they had given their statements and given their position. The three commissioners that you've mentioned, the Vice Chair of IEBC, Connie Nkatha, Dr. Paul Kurgat, and Margaret Mwachanya, who, Wahiga, at the time this already began a week ago, Commissioner Mwachanya, important to note, was away in Dubai on official business for the commission. But the three now saying that they have with immediate effect resigned from the commission it is basically exposing Wahiga the cracks within that particular commission. On one side, when this happened and when the IEBC chair Wafula Chebukati sent the commission secretary and the CEO of the commission, Chiloba, on compulsory leave for 3 months. There were divisions already in that plenary meeting that they had last week on Friday but one. And what we found out then is that Chebukati had brought an agenda that was not meant to be discussed there, saying that he had an audit report and now he had recommended that Chiloba be sent away on a 3-month compulsory leave over queries to do with procurement issues in the ICT department. Now, 2 commissioners at that meeting, that is the Vice Chair and Dr. Paul Kurgat, were not amused by what had happened, the turn of events at that meeting, and they are said to have walked away from that meeting. Chiloba himself, who is, like I said, the secretary to this particular commission, had been asked to step out when this matter was being discussed. And therefore, being the secretary again, there were issues being raised that he could not therefore take minutes of what was happening. And they felt, those who were in support of him, that he was not given a fair hearing. On the other side, our commissioners, Wafula Chebukati, who is the chair, commissioners Boya Molu and Abdi Gulie, who is as well the chair of that internal audit process. And we do understand as well from the Commission Wahiga that already there was an external audit being carried out on the financial goings on in 2017 and how they carried out the 2 elections in August and in October. Chiloba went to court, but the Labor and Employment Relations Court did not find it in his favor because he was arguing that what Chebukati did was unfair. Now, moving forward, what this particular move by these 3 commissioners resigning today means is that therefore they have put this commission in limbo because the quorum is 5 commissioners, Wahiga, and therefore there cannot be any business, and some would argue that basically now that commission ceases to exist. But it's a story we will keep following up for you in the course of the day, Wahiga.
Jackie Maribe, I don't know if you've had a chance to read that tweet by Kipchumba Murkomen, Senate Majority Leader, saying that if Chebukati and the remaining 2 commissioners do not resign within the next 7 days, then a tribunal will be formed to investigate them. Does that not paint a picture for you of what the next couple of days may look like?
Indeed, that reaction by Kipchumba Murkomen is coming in the wake of other reactions from different quarters, from guys in the law fraternity as well. And we have had some of these comments immediately after this press statement was given by the 3 commissioners. However, Wahiga, what is being discussed right now is the fact that there ceases to be a commission because there simply is no quorum. And by the 3 commissioners leaving and the fact that Chiloba has been sent on a 3-month compulsory leave, it therefore leaves only 3 commissioners there. The chairman, that's Wafula Chebukati, Boya Molu and Abdi Gulie. Therefore, it is a question of whether or not this is an opinion, of course, as you have said, by Kipchumba Murkomen, and of course that will be expressed by others if a tribunal should be formed if they do not resign. But then how does the commission in itself exist if it doesn't have quorum? These, of course, are discussions, Wahiga, that we will continue to follow up in the course of the day.
Thank you so much, Jackie Maribe, for that update from the CBD, just outside that hotel where the announcement was made about an hour or so ago. And so in terms of updates, we surely will be taking you to different locations to continue giving you more updates. But let me get a reaction from here. I think, David Osiani, you...
No, I'm just laughing. When you start playing politics, then you know that politics is politics. It plays whichever way. You play politics and you're a commissioner, it comes to bite you. Now, who is going to be the greatest gainer in this whole thing? It seems to me it will be Chiloba. If by law the commission ceases to exist in earnest, then the commissioners will have to go home. And in 3 months, Chiloba's suspension is over because he is on suspension for 3 months. He comes back as CEO and there's no commission to fire him because the commissioners will still be recruited. So in the end, he still looks to be the ultimate gainer in this situation. How that then resolves what's going on, I don't know. So Murkomen's tweet is telling. It's very telling. It's the tone in it. I'm a communication expert as well. I'm many things. The tone in that tweet is very telling. It is a tone of almost anger. It's a tone that's almost personal. I do not want to go the extra mile to link it to the deputy president. I don't want to.
Okay.
But I know he's one of the deputy president's right-hand men.
Let me tell
he's
you.
the majority leader in the Senate. And when he says they must, he's not speaking as a lawyer. He didn't say legally.
I want to give him a chance to respond.
You will give him, or we will hound them out of office, or investigate them.
Because he's on phone right now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very good.
Hang on 1 minute. I want him to come in. You posed some interesting questions to him.
Yeah.
Honorable Murkomen, I trust you can hear us.
Yes, I'm listening.
Yes, David Osiani has raised a couple of interesting points, but let's stick to first the tweet that you've put out there and, of course, your reaction to that announcement by the 3 IBC commissioners that they have resigned with immediate effect.
You see, my reaction is based on what has been happening in the commission the last few weeks. I had already said, even on a different media house, that IBC commission is now riddled with a lot of tenderpreneurship, fighting for tenders, fighting for human resource. The management of the chair of the IBC commission is wanting. The infighting there, the manner in which they are running the affairs of the commission is very clear that you have commissioners and a commission that is not really gelling together. Remember that even the last election, that commission kept sending signals, especially the chair, and I have said, and I want to repeat that Chebukati seemed not to have a mind of his own. He is always swinging like a pendulum without really any management abilities. I sat in the commission, in the committee of parliament, during the committee of parliament that worked on the temporary mechanism for appointing those commissioners, and we gave it to religious leaders. I think it was unfortunate that it is a letdown. We got a crop of commissioners that were unable to work together, but particularly at the helm of its leadership had a chair who is completely unable to put a team together or to make a decision that is based in law. I have had my student, Mr. Osiani, talking about the tone of anger and so forth. My position, and I'm glad that he is saying that he doesn't want to link it to the deputy president. That is how we should always, all of us must always appreciate that as leaders, and as a Senator Vilgio Maragwa, the majority leader, I have also a position on issues, and particularly as a person who served in that joint parliamentary group. We must now fix the issues of IBC with long-term agenda in mind, because we did that just a few months before election. Now the next crop of commissioners must be, we must think through, Parliament must spend time in dealing with the issues, looking at their background, so that we get people who are patriotic enough and who are strong enough to defend decisions they make, and who will follow the law, and whose interest in the commission is not this business there and this appointment there. So the credibility of IBC is now completely tendered, to the extent that I don't think it is tenable for the two commissioners and the chair to still be in office. I think the honorable thing is what the 3 commissioners did, and must be followed by the remaining 3.
Majority Leader, one of the issues that has come up from former commissioners is that this particular IBC really had a lot of challenges when it came to political interference. What is going to happen to ensure that that doesn't happen again with the new crop of commissioners, because history has the unfortunate habit of repeating itself?
Well, political interference will always be there anywhere in any institution. So the against political interference is getting men and women of integrity and persons who are strong enough to defend their decisions and to stand up to any political interference that would end.
Okay. Again, I wish there were more ways in which we could ensure that the men and women who get into these positions feel safer, because we did hear of phone calls made at night to commissioners, intimidation by political leaders as well, and I guess that may have led to what we find ourselves in at this moment. In terms of the process moving forward, you say that if they don't resign within 7 days, a tribunal will be formed. Just give us some insight into how you see the next couple of months for that particular body. Briefly?
Personally, I have seen the affidavit of Ezra Chiloba and the accusations against the IBC chair, including awarding tenders to his former or his law firm and his friends, procurement-related issues, matters of abuse of office by the commissioners, including the two who are now still in office. Those are very grave allegations. And if those allegations are not dealt with, and I'm not saying that, when there are allegations, there are allegations. I believe in due process. If they don't resign voluntarily, then the due process would be that affidavit, plus any other Kenyan who has issues with the management of IEBC, can become a basis for a petition to Parliament. And I do not see how Parliament cannot be satisfied with such a petition to recommend a tribunal to be formed to investigate the veracity of those issues. Of course, if the tribunal finds that they are not guilty, that's fine. But we must go through that process unless the three judges do the honorable thing and save the country any more charade on this matter. Let me put it very clearly that even those of us, I have seen some people saying, your competitors in NASA last time were saying, Chiloba must resign, commissioners must go before election. It is not that we love the IEBC so much. The problem we had with IEBC at that point in time is that we were facing an election. And resignation was being called by persons who wanted to instigate a crisis so that there shall be no election.
Fair enough, so Majority Leader.
We had to put up with a very difficult institution. For
just one last question to you. IEBC had a lot of work lined ahead. Of course, there's the whole boundary exercise, and one wonders, will a new team be constituted in time to be able to do this? There's also talk of a referendum as well. What are your thoughts on the team that would then need to be put in place to handle all these possible activities?
As I said, we need now to quickly think through ending the law. I am even thinking that the commission now should be reduced to 3 commissioners. If we all agree, we just have 3 commissioners, 2 commissioners and a chair, and have a properly working secretariat, so that then we are able to reduce the friction between the commission and the secretariat. Because when you have so many idle commissioners also, you find them trying to go and do the work that should have been done by secretariat, creating conflict of interest, competition within the commission. I think that is an issue that we must all deal with.
Thank you so much, Majority Leader and Senator as well. You've used a very interesting term, idle commissioners. I'm not sure how they will respond to that, but thank you for taking some time to give us your comments on Citizen Extra. Gentlemen, we need to take a short break, but before that, I think it's only fair, David Osiani, I interrupted you to give you a chance to respond.
No, I was saying earlier, the hunter becomes a hunted. So the chairman hunts down Chiloba. He doesn't know what's up in it, and before he knows it, my friend, he who comes to the table of equity must come with clean hands. You don't go hounding your fellow officer when you know yourself. You have, skeletons in the closet. It is unfortunate how this thing metastasized. It was not necessary whatsoever. And because you decided to play like that, then you leave, for example, Chiloba with no option but to also, have salvos. And say, guy, I have been decent, I have that on you, but I've been decent all this while. The whole thing then gets down to, different people siding with the Chiloba and a few people siding with you.
So the revelations in the nation could have come from the Chiloba camp?
Of course, I have had Murkomen reiterating that he has read it. So it seems then that's the linkage. I'm just a good student,
listening and communication.
And so I just linked that up to that. And if that is from Chiloba's affidavit, then it will leave Chebukati with no moral standing to even proceed further. So what happens then? We have no commissioners at this rate because there is lack of quorum. And when we don't have, remember they've put Chiloba on suspension of 3 months. Chiloba will come back after 3 months, by which time the people who suspended him will not be in office. And we will be trying to reconstitute another commission that will take almost a year. So for that whole year, Chiloba will remain as the CEO. Now, the question then is, and which Murkomen refuses to answer, and says that their political interference is normal. And it cannot be normal that an independent constitution will have political interference, deliberate political interference. I expect Murkomen, who's a great friend of mine, to be one of the champions, because he's a good legal mind, for finding solutions within the law
that are able to pad the IEBC against political
That
interference.
actually makes a lot of sense. Gabriel, a brief comment from you.
And very quickly, let's use this word interference, because sometimes we can, we may not see the underlying factor. When I say, or when Murkomen and many other people will say, certain independent offices face interference from the political class, is that the fact that people will have another or a different idea than an independent commission. They will bring in the kind of interference that you're talking about, can be in so many ways. They would want this person out. Like, remember, the calls of Chiloba must go. They made airwaves. We had strikes. We had people throwing stones. I mean, Nairobi was almost a no-go zone on Mondays. And, it was, again, it translated on Friday just because of one individual. That's the kind of interference that Murkomen is talking about. And they will be there across the divide. You've seen the judiciary. So many people within the political fraternity try, to interfere, even in terms of issuing judgments. So when you're talking about interference coming in, you go back to leadership. What is leadership doing about it? Are you allowing that interference to get into you? And from what the three commissioners have said, you had that the lady who came out speaking, external players, and I think that's what she was directing this to. External players must be kept out of the boardroom. So I think that comes in with a lot of weight in it, that the chairman himself must know he is the captain of that boat. If it sinks, he must be the first one to go with it. And now that it has sunk, so to speak.
In your view, it has sunk?
Of course. Of course. I mean, like Koziani has said, there's no quorum. What do you expect?